Hello viewers, and welcome to my first race on iRacing then. It's interesting sitting down to an iRace. You log in, register, you pick your car, your MX-5 or your MX Cup car, and then you pick a race. You'll see test, or you can have race, and in race you can have qualifying, race, time trial, whatever. If you select race, you'll get certain times come up of when you want to race. So in the Mazda, it's usually once an hour all day. And it's an exciting time. When you first register, you will see the countdown clock, and it's right. I'm registered for a race. My race happens at this time. You know, it's an exciting time, I think, to waiting, as you see in that clock countdown. And I think what I found really interesting was the tension that builds up. You have this excitement. It reminds me of the first time I ever played online gaming. The first time I ever played online, I was like, wow, I'm online, I'm going to play against real people, this is amazing, this is really competitive. And I feel that before every iRacing race. You feel that tension even on the grid. It's fantastic. So initially I kicked off with the MX-5 Roadster. I didn't realise that the MX-5 Roadster was slower and had way less grip than the MX-5 Cup. And that's not just down to the car. I don't understand the full ins and outs. It seems to me somewhat down to the engine mapping and the way the car picks up and the way it drives and everything. But certainly either way, the way the gears, the way the engine was mapped, whatever, certainly it appeared to have less power than the US version and less grip. So the US version was a lot easier to handle. But no excuses. It's time for me to start racing. Let's take a look at my first race. So on the starting grid, you see a jump starter at the back there. Before away I go. I didn't even know what the starting procedure was. There was nothing that told me that. So I thought, do the lights go out? Do they go green? Whatever. So down into turn one, terrible start for me. Never having done a standing start before, because I hadn't tested any of that. Something to test out. Round the outside then, wanting to be competitive, but obviously everyone's being sensible. These are all rookie players. These aren't experts. These are new people to iRacing. Everyone's avoiding each other, being sensible. This doesn't happen very often in games with this many cars in a field. And you can see I've got the inside line, so I'm comfortable. I wasn't quite aware that he was on my outside there. I thought he'd drop back behind me, but that's fine. I kept that inside line. I knew I had the braking point sorted. Turning in there, and there's a bit of an incident ahead of me, and I went into the back of the white car after that incident. So at the time, I questioned, was I going too quickly, or did I stamped on the brakes? And so it does give you that second question of whether you made a mistake, but then you say, no, we've got to focus on the race ahead. So I lost a position through that, but now I've got to keep a bit of focus around this high-speed corner. The black car going into the pits there, he did a jump start, which you'll see if you look back, and so he had to pop in the pits, and that ruins your race. So now round the first lap, tyres not up to temperature. It does take a bit of getting used to. You need to find a rhythm, if you like. My wheel juddering now, obviously my first race, I hadn't really set the force feedback or brake to how I wanted. In fact, it was a couple of races in before I did that. But either way, I didn't mind. I was feeling comfortable here. I was feeling quite racy, in fact, and just wanted to work my way through the field. See the first couple of cars ahead, so I'm in 4th place here. And trying to find some speed. The car there, back end coming out, took me completely by surprise. I wasn't expecting that at all. The car just had no grip on that corner. I just couldn't take it with any kind of pace. Completely different. As we look at a replay here of turn one, you see the white car hitting the car in front and then coming back into me. So obviously nothing to do to avoid something like that. These cars are a little bit sloppy, and if there's an incident, it's very hard avoiding it. And you'll see that again on a later video. Another incident where I don't get off too lucky. So lost a place there, having to work my way through from that spin. I lost 3 places on that spin, and that was a disaster. That wasn't really what I wanted for my first race. It's the last thing you want, but at the same time, I'm a rookie, I'm a beginner, I'm learning like anyone else. It doesn't matter how many driving games you've played before. You're driving a new car with a new handling model on a new circuit. And to be fair, I probably hadn't done lots of practice. I just wanted to jump in and race the car. I've always been more of a racing driver. That's always been you know, my forte is racing and usually consistency in racing. I don't normally make mistakes. So gaining on the blue car now. I know I'm quicker than this blue car, but I'm just thinking it's going to take a matter of time. Lost a little bit of confidence in those slow corners, so I was losing a lot of time. Car understeering a little bit there, not too bad. And sweeping into this final corner as we look at the full screen replay. Lovely replays in this game, love the replays, absolutely fantastic. So coming down this long start finish straight before braking, just where you see the tyre marks there is about where I brake, and I turn in nice and early. The car understeers slightly in the first part, you get on the power nice and early on the exit. I didn't always feel the need to use all of the road at that point. This corner is a two-part corner, and you want to get it in, not too much. Flowing second half, waiting to get on the power. Again, keeping my car as straight as possible so that I can just maximise my speed. And again, the back end stepping out on that slow hairpin. This car certainly wasn't taking it too well. I couldn't find any sort of balance in speed and grip. It's completely different in the US model, that I can take round there and I'll never spin in the US car. It has loads more grip, as we see the heli cam in the top corner, giving you an idea of those racing lines as I'm closing more and more on the blue car, looking to try and get a bit of slipstream. But again, this is a slow process. This is a 25 lap race. It's going to mean chipping away back into turn one, nicely round there, nice and early on the power, coming out of that, closing as we go back in car. Seeing my view, again part one of the corner and part two. Actually a two-part corner. It's a turn in, slightly off the power, and then turn into the second bit. So closing gradually. I'm enjoying the racing. I'm finding a little bit more of a flow with the car. Not quite how I want it. Notice I'm taking a wider line around that corner than I would initially like. I'm tentative to an extent now after that spin. I just want to put in some consistent laps rather than pushing too hard and making a mistake. And then I make a mistake. Terrible there. The car oversteered for me, and I get a penalty where I now have to slow down and let other cars pass. So another disaster for me. Let everybody pass I just overtook, and so then I'll have a battle at overtaking everybody again. So it's certainly been a learning experience for me so far, but I don't give up. That's the one thing about me. I love motor racing and I love racing. So now I've got to overtake these guys again, and it's a long race in iRacing. You know, if you do make a mistake, or you spin out, or you smash your car, or you end up in the pits, you know, there is always the option of keeping going. You know, I think we saw it with Danica Patrick in the 500. You know, the Daytona 500. You just got to get experience. You got to just keep going round and round, and who knows? You know, there could be a 4-car pile-up, and they all end up in the pits longer than you, and suddenly you end up winning a race. You know, anything can happen in motor racing, and especially with these kind of long, consistent races, you know, it's a lot of concentration. I'm quite lucky in the sense that I've been doing a lot of these long races, and so the length of the race didn't bother me. I was doing at least 2 races a day, sometimes 3, so along with practice sessions, so it didn't necessarily bother me in length. But at the same time, this first race I was just defending the inside there. I had a bad final corner, and I thought, no, I'm not letting this guy through again. The car in front spinning out, that was handy for me. So 2 places made up, and now targeting the black car ahead of me. He's going to take some time to catch up with. So we take a moment to look at this now. It's an exciting sort of feeling in this first race. You're racing against equally matched opposition in the rookie license. There are divisions within the license, so you can work your way up with better and better players who are cleaner. So if you're a clean racer, you'll be matched up with clean racers. And the safety rating that is in there as well, which is assessing how you're driving, whether you've lost car control, whether you put a wheel off onto the dirt, or, you know, aspects like that are all being taken into account. So even if you're in last place but you do 20 consistent perfect laps, that will count towards your rating. So being a clean driver, minding your own business is very important, and especially no contact with other cars. That's an absolute no-no in iRacing, as I'm getting the back end out trying to find that grip all the time. This car had very low grip. Also of note is the game, it restricts everybody to the cockpit cam, and there's pluses and minuses no doubt to it. I mean, I'm fine with the cockpit cam, but as you can see from an over the shoulder shot in the bottom corner, I can't film over the shoulder, so often when I'm filming these videos I film with the bonnet cam so that you guys can see, otherwise you just get this bright light, and that's not too bad. Some cameras it's a lot worse than that. When seeing the over the shoulder cam, you just can't see anything, just a ball of light outside the window. It does restrict your view. I mean, obviously in a real car I'm somebody who likes to sit quite forward and see the whole bonnet. It's just the way I am. I like to be seeing the whole car in front of me. Some drivers like to sit very low in the car and barely see over the steering wheel. Obviously it's not a problem for me because I'm a giant. As I take another car here on the inside and closed up on that black car quite quickly, must have made a mistake somewhere, and that's another place made up. So I'm not concentrating on the car behind me or defending my position too much. I wanted to be tight into this section so there was no gap on the inside. Close the door and now open it up and really try pushing on that corner just to give me that tenth or so, which gives me that breathing room so I can now focus on my own race. And again, I'm not worried about anyone behind me, but focusing on the next car down the road. Struggling on this slow corner, always a pain through the whole race for me. Nevertheless, I keep on going, as we have, as you can see, an onboard cam. Such great cameras they have in the replays. There's so much for me to work with in putting these replays together for you guys. As we now look at the helicam, I love a good helicam, and this helicam is easily one of the best. Again, another great view. So I've now got a gap in front of me, and that's going to take me a good 5 laps to close down the car in front. So I just need to settle into a rhythm and just keep on going now. That's it. Just testing out different cornering techniques, and that's what I'm doing. I'm actually testing, as you're watching here. I'm trying new ways of turning in. I'm trying new ways of getting on the power. I'm even testing the odd different gear to see if it gives me better drive on an exit, or if it reduces some of the wheel spin and slide that I'm struggling with at this point. This corner here, very slow. Just can't seem to find the grip. It looks so calm from this aerial view, but in actual fact I was scrambling a little bit for grip here and there, trying to find out how I could get some more speed. And it's always a learning experience, but you know, 4 or 5 races after this I'm half a second to a second a lap faster, so there is a lot to be found, and that's all from this constant experimentation, but also a certain confidence in what you can do as a driver. If you know you can do a set lap time, run that lap time, you know, keep on running it, and the improved lap times will come with experience. So a car's gone off ahead as I get a bit the back end out a little bit there, trying to get on the power, and that's another one done. So for me, working through the field so very slowly, but just keep putting in these consistent laps. I'm focused on the blue car in front and catching up with that guy. So back to the cockpit cam. It restricts you to cockpit cam. Everybody has an equal camera view of the action. Works very well, feels very intuitive in iRacing. It's one of the best cockpit cams I've played, essentially. With a triple screen display, this game is unmatched. I say game, simulation is unmatched in its feel. It really does feel amazing. And I've used a whole bunch of triple screen displays, and I can't quite put my finger on what it is. It's just the overall feel of being there. It's that, you know, tactile feeling with the surface, and you're actually in a car that's rolling along, that really works. So another lap over into that turn 1, hitting the apex, getting on the power, and it's so slow, isn't it? You'd like to just gain on that car in front, but I know that though I'm pushing, I'm being conservative in the sense that there's no need for me to bin it at the moment. If I can just focus on closing this gap, it will eventually come to me in perhaps five or so laps. So I've been closing on him about 2 or 3 tenths a second a lap, easy. So You can see I'm coming right up now. The blue car's starting to make a few mistakes, and this is feeling quite comfortable for me as I'm getting closer and closer and closer. But I will keep an eye on the bottom corner, where there is eventually going to be an incident with my TV, which we'll see at some point, hopefully in the race. So making progress then. You can see where I was a while ago, right down the other end of the straight behind all those cars, and now I'm gradually working my way up through the field up to I believe it's 5th place at the moment. And the blue car now getting more and more defensive. I'm following my line, but at the same time I'm just attempting to harass him a little bit with some late braking, just getting nice and close to him, having a weave, looking for an option, and now I see the option. I have a dive for it and make the inside. As long as you make the racing line, you've done your job, I say, and that's it. So I made the racing line and took it nice and cleanly, and away I go. So that's another car taken. Good job, good job. Another lap. It took a while closing up on him, and now I need to focus on, again, myself now. I'm just focusing on putting in some good laps, not worrying about the cars down the road. I can't get closer to those guys in the time I have. I really need one or all of them to make mistakes, but at the same time, you never know, they might make a mistake. As soon as you have an incident, a spin, whatever, the whole race can sometimes become damage limitation. It's happened to me. I've had first lap incidents, and then the whole race is damage limitation, but we'll be going through that in the upcoming videos. And as I say, as I learn stuff about iRacing, there's bound to be stuff on some of these videos which I'll get wrong, because I'm finding new stuff all the time. I'm getting advice from people on what the F keys do and what additional buttons you can set, and all of these great options within iRacing, and work perfectly. So we're over half race distance now, and again, focusing on putting in these laps, just nice and consistent, round and round, looking good, and this is feeling nice and comfortable for me. Not making a massive amount of ground on the cars in front. As I say, it's a very, very slow process, but by being there, by just simply putting in a reasonable lap, you're always putting pressure on, and you don't know what those ratings are of those cars in front. They might be quite experienced. It later turns out that when I use the US car, I'm considerably quicker than I am in this car, and so I would have been a lot further ahead. So looking back, I'm reasonably pleased with sort of the laps and what I was achieving with this car at the time. Into this slow corner, always a struggle, so slow for me. I can feel the other cars getting closer at times like that, and I just, you want to push, you want to get on the power as early as possible, but at the same time you want to keep nice balance in the car, and you want to say, a good solid finish is what you're aiming for. I'm not aiming for victory every time, I'm aiming just to get it to the finish. Oh, as my TV goes off, TV turns off, and then that sends me wide. So disaster, my TV, and if some of you have watched my Formula 1 videos will have seen that in my F1 videos. My TV periodically turns off sometimes. It's done it twice in my iRaces, and that time it sent me off the track, and the other time I just stamped on the brake and was okay and got away with it. It's a bit of a pain having a TV that turns off after long sessions, but what can you do? So I lost another place then. More drama for me in the race. All that hard work trying to gain on the cars in front, and it's wasted now. So I know now that anything higher than the car in front is not doable now. I just need to work on maximising what I can and putting in the consistency in the laps and testing out the different corner types and putting some pressure on this white car in front of me. He's been pretty consistently not too far behind for the last 6-7 laps, so I know that he's going to be pretty consistent, but now I've got to try and close on him. So I will slide the car there around the final corner. Again, I've been testing new ways of taking the final corner. Is it better to go in faster and slide it, or is it better to brake early, and then get on the power deep within the apex, and that way you get a nice run on the exit? As I go slightly wide pushing harder, you can see, so that's making mistakes, and that's why you're seeing a little bit more body language on the car. Luckily for me, the blue car behind me made a mistake as well, and that sent him off the road. So not too bad at this stage. Still a way to go, as I'm now focusing on the white car in front. He's built up quite a lead all of a sudden. Just those two little mistakes from me really slowed me down, and I now need to focus on a couple of very sensible laps. Now again, you need to get back into a rhythm, sensible laps, and I'm often happier with a more grippy car. I tend to like, you know, Formula cars and grippy cars. They work much better for me. This particular car doesn't really work with my driving style, and that's no excuse. That's just simply that some cars a driver will be more comfortable with than others, and I expect I'll be much more comfortable in the Indy car or the Star Mazda, and I look forward to eventually making my way to those formulas. So focus again, maintaining the position I have, and looking at the car ahead and can I get any closer. He's out of sight, but don't worry about that. You really just need to keep putting pressure on, because if he makes one mistake, I want to make sure I'm as close as I can be. As we look at this onboard view, my video camera had run out of memory now, so that's the last you see of the over-the-shoulder shots. As I struggle on that slow corner constantly, I just can't find the grip. The car goes through that so much slower than the rest of the field in second gear. In the US version, it goes through it in third gear, and with no slide at all. It's just rock solid through there. So it was a struggle getting through that corner onto this final pit straight, and I can see the cars at the end, and I'm hoping, please bump into each other, to the three cars that are ahead of me. I need a little bit of luck here if I'm going to gain on these places, but it's not over yet, viewers. It's not over yet. There's a mistake there from a car in front, so I take him and go through, getting heavily on the brakes on the inside. I nearly locked up. It was almost a bit of a disaster going through. There's a bump there which can affect you quite badly if you don't hit it right. Through that, and it does appear to have slowed the cars up ahead ever so slightly. So again, now focusing on the handling and developing. You know, I'm loving the racing right now. I'm loving the tactile feel. I'm loving the excitement of how important it is to get these laps in, to get the experience in, to get a reasonable finishing position, and not to give up. You cannot give up. You have to keep running, even if you're down, even if you're a long way behind. This is all good experience, and as ever, you never know when those two cars in front might bump into each other. They send each other off, and I overtake two people. Things can turn around really quickly in iRacing, or in any racing, and it just takes the leaders to make a few mistakes, and mistakes happen. I make mistakes, everybody makes mistakes at some point. And some of them you would call beginner's errors, and sometimes you're just discovering new ways to drive the car, and some of them work and some of them don't. So it's constantly developing that side of things as your experience evolves. So closing on the white car in front, he's made a mistake somewhere. You know, I've probably been putting in ever so slightly better laps, but at the same time I seem to have closed considerably on him now, and that's a really nice sort of psychological boost. You can see yourself visually getting close to somebody, and I'm thinking, right, I just want to you know, keep on pushing, I'm keeping that guy on his toes. You know, seeing me in his rearview mirror is affecting him. He's going wide there and everything else. You know, he's looking in his rearview mirror. I know that, and I know I'm quite quick through this first part of the lap. I've got a good braking point there. I'm getting the car in nicely and on the power nicely, and it's working well for me on the exits. That's a really nice feeling when you hook up a corner like that. This section's always tricky just because of the bump. The bump, you just never know how it's going to work, and that time I went a bit wide and lost a few of those tenths I'd gained, but the white car wasn't necessarily a lot quicker. So we're coming into the closing part of the race now. Can I make up a place and improve a little bit my first ever iRace? I'm feeling quite confident at this stage. I know I can catch him. I am edging ever so slightly closer, and I know I can pressure him slightly. So let's see what I can manage lap after lap. Visual gap is closing. I've built a gap between myself and the blue car behind. A little bit of a slide there, needing a little bit of opposite lock, but that just gives you an idea of, you know, I'm driving a little bit harder, and I can see I'm getting closer. But obviously some of that isn't necessarily positive, even though it feels like I'm pushing harder. Sometimes pushing hard means being more patient than usual, and breaking my own rules, because I'm always somebody who says don't push harder than you should. But trying to focus on this section, getting it right. I know it's an important section. Getting good drive here. The power as early as I can on that. I'm literally changing gear before I've exited the corner. That's always a risky thing to do, is changing gear mid-corner. The wheels can lock up slightly and it can spin you out. But I'm taking a couple of risks just to get those extra half a mile an hour, just to get a little bit closer. And I know that if I can keep pushing, I can find a way past, or perhaps force an opponent into an error. And I'm feeling at this stage of the race very confident. I'm putting in better and better laps. It doesn't, obviously, as many viewers will know, like I say, I've done long races on Formula 1 and long commentaries for these races as well. So for me, I can keep racing on this all day behind this guy, and you know, it won't bother me. I'm really enjoying this battle now, and the feeling of getting closer. Sometimes I do just like sitting behind someone and just harassing them. I find a lot of fun. When I have a car behind me, I tend to just ignore them and focus on the car in front. That's what I do. And if, you know, I'm obviously aware that, you know, they have to hit their braking points and I have to hit mine. So unless they can get alongside me, they're not going to. As I have another moment there. As long as they can get alongside me, then obviously I'm very fair about that. But at the same time, if they're, you know, just bashing into the back of you, then there's not much you can really do about that. So you can see from the whole body language of my car, I'm pushing hard, he's pushing hard, and getting ever so slightly. This is hard racing now. This is really trying to close up in these Mazdas. And it's at times like this I imagine what it's going to be like in the faster formulas. It's going to be so competitive. I love competitive racing, and I love this sort of feeling when you're closing on someone. You can see that little puff of dirt for me is it's like a red rag to a bull. It means that people are using all the road, and you know, they're trying as hard as they can, and you think, yes, this is great, this is what I want now. The laps are ticking down. There's only a few laps to go, and you know, we're in the final fifth of the race. So I'm closing more and more and more from a long way down the road. I'm now right behind him and looking for a way past. I make a little mistake on my corner there, which lost me another 10th, which was a real shame because I was having a good lap until that point. A little bit of oversteer into this high-speed corner, into this final corner. And a mistake there from the white car, under pressure. We're in the second to last lap now, and so he's fallen off, and that's given me a position ahead. So crossing the line and going into the final lap of the race, and now I'm thinking I'm the one under pressure because I've worked so hard to catch him. I now just don't want to make a mistake on this final lap, so I'm very tentative through this section, taking it a little bit slower than usual, but just thinking, well, I don't want to make any mistakes myself, and just keeping nice and comfortable through this slow corner, no mucking about, nice and slow there. And again here, I find these slow corners really tricky. So we see the replay cam ever so slightly out of sync at this point. The replays and the videos went slightly out of sync towards the end of the video here, and coming round. And so that concludes the iRace, or the first iRace, as we come across the line. Done. So that concludes the first of our iRaces, as we come around now and the other cars will slow down and exit the game. Fourth place on that finish, and you know, despite all of the incidents within the race, I was pleased with the fourth place in the end, and felt I'd learnt a lot from the race as well. It's certainly a positive start for me to my iRacing campaign. The mistakes I made were obviously struggling to understand the car in the slow corners, and you know, essentially the TV turning off, the accidental corner cut. These things happen in motor racing, incidents happen, and you just have to keep focused and keep going. What I realised from that though, that had I not had the errors, I would probably have been battling for the lead. I certainly had some pace despite having what has now turned out to be a slightly slower car, so I advise everyone to use the US car. It is at least half a second a lap quicker, no doubt about it. And so half a second a lap over 25 laps would have made a great difference to my race. So coming in the pits then, I thought I'd finish nice and professional with the blue car. As a rookie, I didn't know what the ending procedure was. I didn't know what you're supposed to do when you went across the line. I just went by and thought, right, damn, what do I do now? Do I park at my pits to finish the race? I saw some people quitting. I thought, oh, I don't want to quit now and mess up the race. So in the pits, and again, it's a good experience of where the pit lane is and finding your way in. Certainly anything's good for that. And I peel off. And that, viewers, was my first race on iRacing. Races 2, 3 and 4 are going to follow in the coming days. But that's it from me for now, viewers. More soon.